She was 7 months pregnant, standing in her own driveway, watching a woman in her silk robe throw her suitcase off the porch. Her clothes scattered across the wet grass. A baby blanket her mother knit by hand landed in a puddle. And her husband, the man who swore to love her. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, silent. He did not say a word. He did not move a single muscle. He watched his pregnant wife crawl on the ground, picking up her things like a stranger. He let it happen. But here is what he did not know. His quiet little wife, the woman he called dead weight, the woman he told his mistress was a nobody, the woman he said could not even pay her own phone bill. She was worth $1.7 billion. He married a billionaire, and he never knew because he never once asked who she really was. What happened next destroyed everything he thought he had, and what she did after will leave you speechless. Stay with me. Every minute of this story gets more intense. And the ending is something you will never forget. Lesson and value. This story is not just about betrayal and revenge. It is about something deeper. It is about a woman who hid the most powerful part of herself because she wanted to be loved for who she was. And when the person she trusted most proved he never cared enough to truly see her, she stopped hiding. Not to punish him, but to finally honor herself. The real lesson is this: never shrink yourself to make someone else feel bigger. The people who truly love you will never ask you to be less than you are. If this story moved you, if you felt her pain, her strength, or her courage, take 1 second and hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story today, share it with them. Sometimes the story is the reminder we need that we deserve better. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what moment hit you the hardest? I read every single one. And if you have not subscribed yet, join this family. We bring you powerful stories like this every week. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss one.
Get her things off my porch, Grant. I am not sharing a doorstep with your little charity case. The voice came from the doorway, sharp, confident, dripping with the kind of cruelty that only sounds natural when someone believes they have already won. Cora stood in the driveway. 7 months pregnant, her back ached, her ankles were swollen. The late October wind cut through her cardigan like it had something personal against her. Tiffany Rollins stepped onto the porch wearing a silk robe. Not just any silk robe, Cora's silk robe. The one Cora's mother had brought back from Milan 2 Christmases ago. Tiffany wore it like she owned it. Like she owned everything. She picked up Cora's suitcase with both hands and hurled it off the front steps. It hit the walkway. The zipper split open. Clothes tumbled across the wet grass, a pair of maternity jeans, a cotton nightgown. 2 books. Cora had been reading about newborn sleep schedules, and a baby blanket, hand-knit by Cora's mother. Pale yellow yarn with tiny white stars. It landed in a puddle at the base of the mailbox. The one that still read Holloway in block letters. Grant stood in the doorway behind Tiffany. He did not move. He did not speak. He watched his pregnant wife scramble for her belongings with a look that was not shame. It was annoyance. Like she was a delivery driver who had rung the bell during dinner. Cora looked up at him. She gave him 5 seconds. She counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing. Not a word, not a flinch. She bent down slowly. Her belly made it difficult. She picked up the baby blanket, wrung out the water with both hands, folded it carefully, tucked it under her arm, then she gathered what she could from the grass, shoved the clothes back into the broken suitcase, dragged it to her car. The Honda Civic was 7 years old. She had chosen it deliberately. The way she chose everything in this marriage deliberately. To be ordinary, to be unremarkable, to be loved for herself. She loaded the suitcase into the trunk, closed it, did not look back at the house. She drove. 2 miles down the road, she pulled into a gas station parking lot, turned off the engine, sat in the dark. The streetlight above her flickered. On, off, on, off. Like it could not decide whether to witness this or look away. Her hands gripped the steering wheel. The leather was cold. Her knuckles went white. The baby kicked, hard, right against her ribs. As if to say, "We are still here." She adjusted the rearview mirror, caught sight of her own face. Swollen eyes, blotchy skin, and below her face, the curve of her belly pressing against the seatbelt. 7 months of growing a life inside a marriage that was already dead. She looked at the sun visor. The receipt from their first date was still tucked into the fold. Italian restaurant. Linguine with clam sauce. He had insisted on paying. She had let him. She had let him believe he was the provider. To stop being so clingy. Tiffany, to stop being so clingy. Tiffany understands me. Below it, a second message. From a number she did not recognize, a photo. Grant and Tiffany on a beach, sunburned, smiling, matching cocktails, a resort in Cabo. The date stamp said 4 months ago. The caption below the photo read, "My man." 4 months ago, Cora had been in her second trimester. She had been nauseous every morning. She had been designing the nursery by herself because Grant said he was too busy with work. He was in Cabo, with her. Cora's hands stopped shaking. Something shifted behind her eyes. Not grief, not yet. Something colder, something quieter. She opened an app on her phone, the one Grant did not know existed, the one he had never seen, the one connected to a private encrypted network that routed through 3 servers before reaching its destination. The screen loaded. A dashboard appeared, portfolio summaries, asset allocations, real-time valuations across 14 subsidiary companies. At the top, a single number glowed in the dark car, $1.7 billion. That was her net worth. Not Grant's, not theirs, hers, Cordelia Ashford. Majority shareholder and silent architect of Ashford Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest rare disease treatment companies in the southeastern United States. Her husband thought she was a freelance graphic designer who made $38,000 a year. She closed the app, took a breath. The air in the car smelled like wet wool and gasoline. The baby kicked again, softer this time. She dialed one number. It rang twice. "Deacon, it is Cora. I need you to begin." A pause on the other end, then a voice. Calm, measured, like a man who had been sitting by the phone for a very long time. "I have had the file ready for 11 months, Cora. I was waiting for you to call." 11 months. Her attorney had seen it before she did. The betrayal had been building for nearly a year. And everyone knew. Everyone except the woman standing in a gas station parking lot with a broken suitcase and a billion-dollar secret. She hung up, put the phone in her lap, stared through the windshield at the empty road ahead. The streetlight flickered one more time, then went dark. The hotel suite smelled like eucalyptus and fresh linen, marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Charlotte skyline. A king-size bed with sheets that probably cost more than Grant's monthly car payment. Cora checked in under her corporate alias. The name on the black card was Ashford Holdings. The concierge recognized it immediately. His posture changed, his smile sharpened. The entire front desk shifted into a different gear. Cora barely noticed. She walked past the welcome fruit basket, past the bottle of champagne chilling in a silver bucket, past the fresh flowers arranged on the entry table. She went straight to the bathroom, sat down on the marble floor. The tile was cold through her leggings. She leaned against the wall and stared at the ceiling. She should call someone. She should eat something. She should take off her shoes. She should do something productive with the fury and the grief and the humiliation churning inside her like a storm with no eye. Instead, she turned on the bath. Hot water. Steam rose and filled the room. She climbed in fully clothed, cardigan, leggings, socks, all of it. The water soaked through the fabric and pressed it against her skin. Her belly rose above the surface like a small island. She stayed there until the water went cold. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just breathed. In, out, in, out. The faucet dripped. Drip, drip, drip. Each drop echoed off the marble like a tiny clock counting down to something she could not name. When she finally pulled herself out, she wrapped a towel around her shoulders and sat on the edge of the bed. Wet footprints trailed behind her on the marble. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. She thought about the bookstore 2 years ago. Charlotte, North Carolina. She had been browsing the poetry section. Pablo Neruda. She always went back to Neruda when she needed to feel something honest. A hand had reached past her for the same book. She looked up. Grant Holloway, 34 at the time, dark hair, easy smile, the kind of jaw that looked good in photographs. "You have great taste," he said. She was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. No jewelry, no designer labels, no indication that the woman standing in the poetry aisle owned a pharmaceutical empire worth more than the entire shopping center they were standing in. That was the point. For 6 years before Grant, Cora had watched wealthy men pursue her name, her trust fund, her connections. They did not want Cora. They wanted Ashford. They wanted the doors her last name could open and the accounts her signature could unlock. She was exhausted by transactional love, so she built a second identity. Cora Ashford, freelance graphic designer, modest apartment, used car, a life small enough that no one would look twice. Grant did not Google her, or if he did, he found exactly what she wanted him to find. A woman with a simple website and a modest portfolio. Nothing remarkable, nothing threatening. He talked about wanting a family, a real home, Sunday dinners with kids running through the yard. He said his biggest dream was to build something that lasted. She believed him. God help her. She believed every word. They married after 8 months. She signed a prenup. He thought it protected his modest 401k and his used BMW. He joked about it at the signing. "What is mine is yours, babe." He did not read the fine print. He never read the fine print. In reality, the prenup was a fortress, structured by Deacon Merritt to protect every asset, every trust, every share of Ashford Pharmaceuticals. If the marriage failed, Grant would leave with exactly what he brought in. Nothing more. She stared at the hotel ceiling and let the memory play out. I was not naive. I was hopeful. There is a difference, and I refuse to be ashamed of hope. A knock at the door. She opened it. Deacon Merritt stood in the hallway, 45 years old, gray at the temples, suit pressed, expression unreadable. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a manila folder thick enough to be a doorstop in the other. "May I come in?" he said. It was not a question. He sat at the suite's dining table, opened the folder, 3 inches thick, bank statements, hotel receipts, credit card records, a lease agreement, a boat loan, an insurance policy. "Let me walk you through this," Deacon said. His voice was steady, clinical. The voice of a man who had delivered bad news so many times that he had learned to strip the emotion from it, like a surgeon strips gloves. The affair with Tiffany Rollins had been going on for at least 7 months. Hotel rooms, weekend trips, dinners at restaurants Cora had never heard of, all funded from a joint savings account that Grant had opened without Cora's knowledge. He had been diverting money from the household expense account she funded each month. "He used your money to finance the affair," Deacon said. Cora sat very still. "There is more. He has been telling Tiffany that he is the primary earner, that you are financially dependent on him, that you contribute nothing to the household. The room seemed to tilt, just slightly, like the floor had shifted half an inch to the left. He told her I was the burden, Cora said. Yes. She looked at the toiletries on the bathroom counter. Without thinking, she stood up and arranged them in a line. Shampoo, conditioner, lotion, body wash, all in a row, all evenly spaced. She did this at home, too. Whenever the world felt out of control, she controlled the small things. The arrangement of bottles, the alignment of towels, the order of spices in the kitchen rack. She sat back down. Deacon slid one more document across the table. A life insurance policy. $2 million. Taken out on Cora 3 months ago. The beneficiary was not the unborn child. The beneficiary was Tiffany Rollins. Cora read the name 3 times. Then she looked at Deacon. His expression had not changed, but something in his eyes had. Something hard. Something protective. He does not know what he married, Deacon said quietly, but he is about to find out. The phone call to her mother lasted 47 minutes. Cora sat on the hotel balcony, barefoot, wrapped in a robe, staring at the city lights below. Charlotte sparkled in the dark, like a circuit board. 3 of those buildings down there carried her name on the deed. She owned them through holding companies that Grant had never heard of. Mom, I need to tell you something. Estelle Ashford's voice was calm on the other end. Too calm. Darling, I already know. Cora's breath caught. You know about the affair. I know about the life insurance policy. My security team flagged it 2 months ago. The broker Grant used also handles some of our family policies. It triggered an automatic review. 2 months. Her mother had known for 2 months. Why did you not tell me? Cora said. Her voice cracked. For the first time since the suitcase hit the lawn, it cracked. Because you needed to see it yourself. I have watched you build an empire from the shadows, Cordelia. You are the most capable woman I have ever known. But you had a blind spot, and the blind spot had a name. Silence. The city hummed below. I knew he was a snake, darling. I have known since the rehearsal dinner, when he asked your uncle about estate tax strategies and pretended it was small talk. Your uncle called me that night. He said, Estelle, that boy is measuring the curtains before he has bought the house. Cora closed her eyes. I saw it too. I saw it, and I chose to look away. My mother saw it. My lawyer saw it. My uncle saw it. Everyone saw it. And I sat there, in my flannel shirt, pretending that love was enough to make a good man out of a selfish one. What do you want to do? Estelle asked. I want the truth to come out, all of it, on my terms. Good, then let it. The call ended. Cora sat on the balcony for a long time. The wind picked up. It smelled like rain. Somewhere below, a car horn honked. A siren wailed in the distance. The city kept moving. The world kept spinning. It did not care about her broken marriage. It never would. An hour later, Jolene Pratt arrived. She came through the hotel room door, carrying 2 bags of Chinese takeout and a look on her face that could strip paint off a wall. Tell me everything, Jolene said. She kicked off her shoes and sat cross-legged on the bed. She was still in her hospital scrubs. She smelled like antiseptic and soy sauce, Cora told her. Through Jolene's visit, the shape of Cora's hidden life came into focus. Cora had inherited Ashford Pharmaceuticals at 24. Her father, Theodore Ashford, died of a heart attack in his office. He was 57. Cora found him. She was the one who called the ambulance. She was the one who rode with him to the hospital. She was the one who signed the papers when they told her he was gone. Instead of stepping into the spotlight, she disappeared into it. She installed a hand-picked CEO. She managed the company through a trust. She attended board meetings remotely under a code name. She developed 3 patents for rare disease treatment. She funded a children's hospital wing. She donated to research programs across 4 universities. She did all of it invisibly, because the moment her name appeared on a shareholder report, the men would come. The ones who smelled money the way sharks smell blood. You built a whole empire and let that man think you needed his credit card for groceries, Jolene said. She shoved lo mein into her mouth and shook her head. I did not want to be loved for money, Joe. Honey, I have been biting my tongue for 2 years, but he did not love you without money either. He loved himself. You were just the mirror he liked looking into. Cora looked at her reflection in the hotel window. 7 months pregnant, hair unwashed, still in the robe. And behind her reflection, the Charlotte skyline. Her skyline, her buildings, her name etched into the foundation of this city, invisible to everyone who walked its streets. She pressed her palm against the glass. The window was cold. I wanted to believe people could love the ordinary version of me, she said quietly. Cora, there is no ordinary version of you. There never was. Deacon's team continued digging. Every hour brought a new discovery. Grant had not just cheated, he had been applying for credit lines using forged versions of Cora's freelance income. He had inflated her supposed graphic design earnings to secure additional loans, a boat loan. Cora did not know about a boat, a personal line of credit. Cora did not know about that either. He had been building a parallel financial life using her identity as collateral, and every dollar he borrowed, he spent on Tiffany, or on himself, or on the version of himself that Tiffany believed was real. The man who could not afford the dinner he bought on their first date was leveraging his wife's forged income to finance a lifestyle that did not exist. They sat on the balcony. Cora ate cold lo mein from the container. Jolene sat beside her in silence. The baby kicked. Jolene put her hand on Cora's belly. This kid is going to have one hell of a story someday, Jolene whispered. They sat like that for a long time. The city lights blurred. The food went cold. Neither spoke. Sometimes silence is the loudest kind of love. Cora's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Grant, she answered. Hey, babe? His voice was casual. Warm, even, like nothing had happened. Like the suitcase had never hit the lawn. Tiff and I had a misunderstanding. Why don't you come home and we will sort it out? You know you cannot handle things alone right now. Not in your condition. Cora stared at the phone. He did not know she was in a $3,000 a night suite. He thought she was sleeping in her car, or on Jolene's couch, or in some budget motel, counting quarters for the vending machine. He thought she had nowhere to go. She hung up without speaking. Jolene looked at her. What did he say? He told me I cannot handle things alone, in my condition. Jolene snorted. That man does not know the meaning of the word condition, but he is about to. Grant Holloway woke up on Tuesday morning feeling confident. He made coffee in Cora's kitchen with Cora's coffee maker using Cora's beans. He stood at Cora's counter in Cora's house and called his buddy Derek from work. She is gone, man. Finally. Tiffany moved in. Clean slate. Derek said something on the other end. Grant laughed. Cora was dead weight. No ambition, no drive. She just sat around the house doing her little designs on the laptop. Tiffany actually pushes me to be better. You know what I mean? She is a go-getter. He sipped his coffee. It tasted like victory. By Thursday, the victory had gone stale. The mortgage payment bounced. Grant stared at the notification on his banking app. Insufficient funds he did not understand. The household account always had money in it. Cora deposited funds each month like clockwork. Regular transfers from her freelance work, or so he believed. He tried to log into the account. Access denied. He called the bank. They informed him that the account had been frozen per the instruction of the trust that held the property deed. What trust? Grant said. The bank representative could not provide details. Grant put down his phone. Something cold moved through his chest. Not fear, not yet. More like the first crack in a frozen lake. The ice still held, but something underneath was shifting. Tiffany was not helping matters. Now installed in the house like she had signed the deed herself, she had opinions about everything. The furniture was outdated. The kitchen needed renovating. The curtains in the nursery were depressing. Who picks yellow for a nursery? She said, scrolling through design websites on her phone. I am thinking gray, modern, maybe some gold accents. The nursery, the one Cora had designed for her baby. The one with the hand-painted mural of stars on the ceiling. The one Cora had spent 3 weekends painting while Grant was supposedly at a sales conference in Atlanta. He was in Cabo, with Tiffany, while Cora painted stars. But Grant did not think about that. Grant thought about the mortgage, about the frozen account, about the strange word, trust, that the bank had used. Babe, Tiffany said from the couch, when are you filing for divorce? We need to get this moving. I am handling it. You have been saying that for 2 weeks. I said I am handling it, Tiffany. She did not respond, but she picked up her phone and typed something, and something in the way she typed it made Grant's stomach tighten. Across town, Cora walked into Ashford Pharmaceuticals for the first time since her father's funeral. The building was glass and steel. 12 stories. The lobby smelled like polished stone and coffee from the executive lounge. A massive portrait of Theodore Eyre Ashford hung behind the reception desk. Cora had his jaw, his steady eyes, his habit of listening longer than anyone expected before speaking. She wore a simple navy dress, flats, no jewelry. She carried nothing except her phone and a folder. The security team recognized her clearance code. The elevator took her directly to the 12th floor. The boardroom doors opened. 14 people sat around a mahogany table. The CEO, Richard Tate, a man she had hired 7 years ago, stood immediately. He offered her his chair at the head of the table. Miss Ashford, we were not expecting you in person. I know. That is going to change. She sat. The room went quiet. These people knew her voice. They had heard it on quarterly calls for years, crisp, measured, decisive, but they had never seen her face, not like this, not pregnant and tired and radiating a quiet fury that made the air in the room feel thinner. She touched the glass of her father's portrait as she passed it in the hallway. Her reflection overlapped with his face. Same jaw, same eyes, same patience that could look like softness until it turned to steel. I'm sorry it took me so long, Dad. The board meeting lasted 2 hours. Cora outlined a restructuring plan, a new research initiative, a maternal health funding program. She spoke without notes. She answered every question. She did not mention Grant. She did not mention the suitcase. She did not mention any of it. When the meeting ended, Richard Tate walked her to the elevator. It is good to have you here, Cora. Truly. It is good to be here. I should have come sooner. You came when you were ready. That is what matters. She rode the elevator down, alone. Caught her reflection in the mirrored doors. Pregnant, exhausted, standing in the building her father built, and she had grown into something larger than he ever imagined. This is who I am. Not the woman folding laundry while he texted his girlfriend, not the woman smiling at his company Christmas party while he flirted with the bartender. I do not need revenge. I need the truth to come out. Revenge is for people who feel powerless. I was never powerless. I just forgot. Back at the house, Grant discovered more problems. The electricity bill had a notice attached. The water bill was overdue. Small cracks in the financial wall were spreading. Everything that had run smoothly in the household had run smoothly because Cora made it run smoothly. And now Cora was gone. He called her that evening, furious, accused her of playing games, threatened to take the baby, said his lawyer would destroy her in court. Cora listened to the entire rant. 23 seconds of threats and insults. Then she spoke. Grant, you do not have a lawyer. You have a paralegal from a strip mall who handles DUIS, but you are welcome to try. She hung up. For the first time in 23 months of marriage, she heard something new in Grant Holloway's voice. Fear. That same evening, Tiffany sat on the couch with her phone. The mortgage had bounced. The bills were late. Grant had been snapping at her all day. Something did not add up. She typed 2 words into the search bar. Ashford Pharmaceuticals. The results loaded. She read the company overview, the executive team page, the history section. A name caught her eye. Theodore Ashford, founder. His daughter, Cordelia Ashford, principal shareholder. Tiffany looked at the name, looked at the wedding photo on Grant's phone, the one of the woman in the simple white dress. The woman Grant called dead weight. Cordelia Ashford. Cora Ashford. Cora Holloway. Her face went white. The argument started in the kitchen and ended on the front porch. Tiffany did not whisper. Tiffany did not do calm. She came at Grant like a Category 5 hurricane making landfall, and the house shook with it. You told me she was nobody. Grant was standing by the refrigerator. He had a beer in his hand. He looked confused, the specific kind of confused that meant he was about to lie. What are you talking about? He said. Ashford Pharmaceuticals. I looked it up. Your wife. Your quiet little graphic designer wife. She owns the whole thing, Grant. The whole company. That is ridiculous. Cora designs logos. She is worth over $1 billion. The beer bottle stopped halfway to his mouth. That is not possible. I read it. Her name, her father's name, the company page, the board of directors. She is listed as principal shareholder. $1 billion, Grant. You married a billionaire, and you were sneaking around with me in a rented apartment that you paid for with her money. Grant set the bottle down. His hand was steady, but his eyes were not. Tiff, listen to me. I did not know. You did not know. That is your defense. You did not know that the woman you were married to was one of the wealthiest people in this state. You did not know that the house we are standing in is probably owned by some trust you cannot even spell. You did not know anything. She grabbed her jacket from the back of the chair. You told me she was pathetic. You told me she was clingy. You told me she could not even pay her own phone bill. And the whole time, she was paying for everything. Our apartment, your boat, this house, every dinner, every trip. Tiffany, calm down. Do not tell me to calm down. I am not the one who threw away like a billionaire to impress a real estate agent from Gastonia. The argument moved to the porch. The door was open. Voices carried. The neighbors heard every word. Doris Whitmore, the retired schoolteacher 3 houses down, stood in her driveway with a watering can. She watched the scene unfold with the weary recognition of a woman who had seen this exact drama play out in different houses across different decades. Different names. Same stupidity. She shook her head slowly, put down the watering can, went inside. Tiffany packed her things in under an hour. 2 suitcases, a garment bag, a box of shoes. She loaded them into her car without asking for help. Grant stood on the porch and watched. He did not try to stop her. At the car door, Tiffany paused. She turned around. Her mascara was smudged. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. You know what is funny, Grant. She was the rich one, and she still treated me with more dignity than you ever will. She drove away. The tires crunched on the gravel. The sound faded. Grant stood alone on the porch of a house he did not own, wearing a shirt his wife had bought him, breathing air that suddenly felt too thin to swallow. While Grant's world crumbled in public, Cora faced her own crisis in private. The appointment with Dr. Vivian Lark was supposed to be routine. 20 minutes, blood pressure check, fetal heartbeat, a quick review of symptoms. It was not routine. Dr. Lark frowned at the blood pressure monitor, read the number twice, then a third time. Cora, your blood pressure is elevated. Significantly. I have been under some stress. I can see that. We are looking at early signs of preeclampsia. Protein in your urine, swelling in your hands and feet beyond what I would expect at this stage. I need you to take this seriously. Cora sat on the exam table. The paper crinkled beneath her. The room smelled like disinfectant and latex gloves. What does that mean for the baby? Right now, the baby is fine. Heartbeat is strong. Movement is normal. But your body is telling you something. The stress you are under is not just emotional. It is physiological. If we do not get your blood pressure down, we are talking about early delivery, bed rest, possibly hospitalization. I can burn his world down, or I can keep this baby safe. I cannot do both at the same speed. Dr. Lark placed the ultrasound wand on Cora's belly. Cold gel. The screen flickered, and then the sound, the heartbeat, thump, 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 steady, strong, unhurried, unconcerned with prenups and insurance policies and suitcases on lawns. Cora closed her eyes, put her hand on her belly, felt the kick against her palm. I hear you, little one. I hear you. Dr. Lark waited a moment, then asked a question she had probably asked 1,000 patients. But this time it landed differently. Is the father involved? Cora stared at the ceiling tiles, counted the dots in one square, lost count, started over. The father does not know what he lost yet. Dr. Lark did not press further. She printed the ultrasound photo, handed it to Cora, wrote a prescription for blood pressure medication, scheduled a follow-up for the end of the week. Reduce your stress, Cora. I mean it. Whatever is happening in your life right now, your body is keeping score. Cora drove back to the hotel. She placed the ultrasound photo on the nightstand, propped it against the lamp. A small gray image of a curled-up life that depended entirely on her. She ordered room service, ate half a grilled chicken sandwich, left the rest on the tray, sat on the balcony, and watched the city settle into night. Somewhere out there, Grant was sitting in an empty house. No wife, no mistress, no mortgage payment, no understanding of what had happened or what was coming. And Cora was here, alone, pregnant, exhausted, with $1 billion and no one to share a sandwich with. She did what she always did when overwhelmed. She reorganized the kitchen drawers, except there were no kitchen drawers. So she reorganized the hotel closet instead, hung her few clothes in order, lightest to darkest, shortest to longest, aligned into the hangers exactly 1 inch apart. Control. Even the illusion of it helped. Dr. Lark's orders were clear. Bed rest, minimal stress. Regular monitoring. The timing was impossible. Cora had legal strategy sessions with Deacon, board meetings for Ashford Pharmaceuticals, a new drug launch in the pipeline, and a husband who was now desperate, unpredictable, and beginning to realize that the ground beneath him was not as solid as he thought. She tried to rest. She lasted 2 days. On the 3rd day, Grant showed up at the hotel. He did not know her room number. He did not know which floor. He stood in the lobby, in a wrinkled sport coat, smelling like stale coffee and poor decisions, and shouted her name. Cora! Cora Holloway! I know you are here. Someone tell her I am here. The concierge looked at him the way a museum guard looks at someone who has crossed the velvet rope. Sir, I cannot confirm or deny. She is my wife. She is carrying my baby. You cannot keep me from her. Security arrived. 2 men in dark suits, polite but immovable. They escorted Grant to the sidewalk. He did not resist, but he shouted the entire way, "She is my wife. She is carrying my baby." Cora watched from the window of her suite, 14 floors up. She could see the top of his head, the way his hands moved when he yelled, the way the security guards flanked him like parentheses around a sentence nobody wanted to read. He never called me his with that much passion when we were together. Funny how ownership becomes urgent when you realize you never actually had it. That night, the darkness came. Not the productive darkness, not the kind that fuels resolve and sharpens edges. The other kind. The kind that sits on your chest at 3 a.m. and whispers things you already know but have been too busy to hear. She could not sleep. The baby was restless. Her back ached. The hotel room, for all its luxury, felt like a beautiful cage. She opened her phone. She had promised herself she would not do this. She did it anyway. Old photos, the camera roll from the last 2 years, Grant building the nursery, sawdust in his hair, grinning over his shoulder. "What do you think, babe?" Pretty good for a guy who failed shop class. Grant's hand on her belly at 5 months, his face pressed against her skin. "I think she kicked. Did you feel that?" Grant cooking dinner, pasta from a box, sauce from a jar. He acted like it was a gourmet achievement. She ate every bite and told him it was wonderful. She zoomed in on his eyes in one photo, tried to find the lie, searched the pixels for some flicker of deception, some shadow of the man who would take out a life insurance policy on her and name his mistress as beneficiary. She could not find it. His eyes looked warm, real, loving. That was the worst part. He looked genuine. Maybe parts of it were genuine. Maybe he did love her in the limited way he was capable of loving anyone. Maybe the problem was not that his love was fake. Maybe the problem was that his love was small. Too small to hold a marriage. Too small to hold a child. Too small to hold the truth of who she was. That made it worse, not better. She called Jolene at 3:12 in the morning. Jolene answered on the first ring, did not even say hello. Just, "I am already in the car." 20 minutes later, Jolene was in the hotel bed beside her. They ate ice cream from the container, watched a cooking show with the volume low. Some woman was making a souffle. The host said something about patience being the secret ingredient. Cora almost laughed. Jolene did not say it will be okay. She did not say, "You are better off." She did not say anything at all. She just sat there, present, steady, her shoulder touching Cora's shoulder, the sound of spoons scraping the bottom of the container. The loneliest moment is not when he is gone. It is when you realize you were lonely the whole time he was there. At 4 a.m, a sharp pain. Cora doubled over. The ice cream container fell off the bed. Jolene was on her feet in 2 seconds. "What is it? Talk to me." "Something is wrong." Jolene drove her to the hospital. 80 miles an hour on empty streets. The streetlights blurred into a single orange line. Cora gripped the dashboard. The pain came in waves. Tight. Release. Tight release. The monitors beeped. The nurses moved with quiet urgency. Dr. Lark appeared in scrubs and a surgical cap. She read the monitors, pressed Cora's abdomen, checked the fetal heart rate. Contractions, early but real. We are going to slow them down. Magnesium drip, blood pressure medication. fetal monitoring. The machines hummed, the contractions eased, the baby's heartbeat steadied. Thump, 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 thump. She is stable, Dr. Lark said, but you are on bed rest now. Not a suggestion. An order. Cora lay in the hospital bed, the IV pulled at her arm. The monitors blinked. The room smelled like plastic tubing and hand sanitizer. She put both hands on her belly. The baby moved, slow, sleepy, settling back down. I built $1 billion company from silence. I can handle this, but I do not have to handle it alone, and I do not have to handle it his way. She called her mother. Mom, I need you. Estelle's voice was immediate. No hesitation, no questions. I am already at the airport, sweetheart. The hospital room door opened. Cora expected Estelle. It was not Estelle. It was Grant. And standing beside him was a lawyer. Not the paralegal from the strip mall. A real lawyer. Boyd Creston. Sharp suit, leather briefcase. The kind of man who billed $500 an hour and looked like he was worth every penny. And Boyd Creston was holding custody paperwork. Grant stood just inside the hospital room door. He had rehearsed this. Cora could tell. His posture was too straight. His expression was too measured. He had practiced this face in the mirror. Concerned husband, worried father, a man who only wanted what was best for his child. Boyd Creston set the paperwork on the bedside tray. His voice was professional, detached. Mrs. Holloway, my client has filed an emergency motion for prenatal custody rights. Additionally, we are requesting a psychological evaluation. Given recent erratic behavior, financial deception, and abandonment of the marital home, we believe it is in the best interest of the child to... Financial deception, Cora said. Yes. My client was unaware of significant hidden assets. The deliberate concealment of wealth during a marriage constitutes... Stop. The voice came from the doorway. Not Cora's voice? Deacon Merritt's. He walked in 6 minutes after Grant. He did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He wore the same pressed suit, carried the same leather briefcase. But where Boyd Creston looked like a man who billed $500 an hour, Deacon Merritt looked like a man who decided which $500 an hour lawyers kept their licenses. He placed a single folder on the hospital tray table, right next to the custody paperwork. Mr. Creston, before we proceed, I want to make sure you have been fully briefed by your client. Boyd Creston straightened his tie. I have been. Then you are aware that your client opened fraudulent credit lines using forged income documents bearing my client's name. You are aware that he took out a $2 million life insurance policy on my client and listed his mistress as the sole beneficiary. You are aware that he diverted household funds into a secret account to finance an extramarital affair lasting at least 7 months. And you are aware that he is standing in a hospital room, harassing a woman in premature labor, asking a judge to question her mental fitness. The room went very still. I would rethink this strategy, Deacon said. Boyd Creston opened the folder, read the first page, flipped to the second, then the third. His jaw tightened. He looked up at Grant. You told me she was a graphic designer. Grant shifted his weight. She is. Grant. Creston's voice dropped. She is the majority shareholder of Ashford Pharmaceuticals. This woman is worth, He looked at the folder again, blinked. This woman is not someone you file emergency custody motions against while she is hooked to a fetal monitor. That cannot be. It is. Grant looked at Cora, really looked at her, lying in the hospital bed, IV in her arm, monitors tracking her heartbeat and the baby's heartbeat. Her hair was unwashed. Her face was pale. She wore a hospital gown that had been washed 1,000 times by industrial machines. She looked exactly like the woman he had married. The quiet one, the simple one, the one who cooked dinner without complaining and ironed his shirts and never once asked him to explain the charges on his credit card. She was all of those things. She was also worth $1.7 billion. You never asked who I was, Cora said. 6 words. That was all it took. 6 words and 23 months of marriage collapsed like a tent in a hurricane. Grant reached for the chair beside the bed, sat down hard, like his legs had simply stopped receiving instructions from his brain. The same chair where, an hour ago, he had sat rehearsing his power play, practicing his concerned expression, planning his strategy. Now it was just a chair, and he was just a man, and the ground beneath him had turned to sand. Boyd Creston closed the folder, picked up the custody papers, placed them back in his briefcase. I will not be representing you in this matter, Mr. Holloway. I suggest you find new counsel, and I suggest you find it quickly. He walked out. His shoes clicked on the linoleum. Click, 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 the sound of a man who knew a losing case when he saw one. Grant sat in the chair, staring at the floor, his hands hung between his knees. How long? He said. How long what? Cora replied. How long did you? I have owned Ashford Pharmaceuticals since I was 24 years old. I have been the principal shareholder for 8 years. I ran the company remotely through a trust. I developed 3 patents. I funded a children's hospital wing. I sit on 2 research boards. I did all of this while you were at work, while you were at dinner, while you were in Cabo with your girlfriend. Grant put his face in his hands. I thought I knew you, he said. You knew the version of me that fit inside your ego. That is not the same thing. The room was quiet. The monitors beeped. The fourth dripped. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse laughed about something, walked in wearing a charcoal coat and pearl earrings. She looked at Grant in the chair, looked at the folder on the tray table, looked at her daughter in the bed. She turned to Deacon, 3 words. Handle this quietly. Then she sat beside Cora, took her hand, said nothing else. The monitors beeped. The silence was louder than any argument, louder than any shouted accusation or slammed door or suitcase hitting wet grass. Cora held her mother's hand, felt the papery warmth of her skin, smelled her perfume, lavender. Estelle always wore lavender. When Cora was 5 years old and afraid of thunder, Estelle would sit with her exactly like this. Hold her hand, say nothing, wait for the storm to pass. The storm was passing. Grant left the hospital without speaking again. He walked through the parking lot to his car. Sat behind the wheel. Did not start the engine. He opened his laptop, typed 2 words into the search bar, Ashford Pharmaceuticals. He read the company page, the history, the executive team, the board of directors, the press releases, the patent filings, the charity initiatives. His wife's fingerprints were on every page. Anonymous quotes and trade publications. Keynote speeches delivered under her mother's name. Foundation grants signed with initials he had never bothered to ask about. 8 years. She had built this in plain sight, and he had never once looked. He put his head on the steering wheel. The horn honked once, loud and lonely, in the empty parking lot. A sound no one heard. 2 weeks passed. The contractions did not return. Cora's blood pressure stabilized. Dr. Lark allowed her to resume limited activity. Limited, not full speed, not the velocity of a woman with a pharmaceutical empire and a divorce in progress. But enough. Enough to begin. Cora made a decision. Not about Grant, about herself. She had been hiding for 6 years, from her name, from her money, from the weight of who she was. She had convinced herself that smallness was safety, that ordinariness was love, that if she shrank enough, someone would see the real her. But the real her had never been small. The first act of reclamation was small. She called Richard Tate and told him she would be attending the National Pharmaceutical Conference in person, not as a remote participant, not as a voiceless shareholder on a conference call. As Cordelia Ashford, the second act was smaller. She packed a bag, not much, a navy dress, comfortable shoes, her father's watch, which she had kept in a safe deposit box for 8 years because she was afraid that wearing it would raise questions. She wore it now. The face was scratched. The band was loose. It ticked against her wrist like a second heartbeat. The conference was in Raleigh. 300 attendees, industry leaders, researchers, investors, journalists. Cora had attended these events for years as a name on a sponsorship banner, never as a face, never as a voice. She stood at the podium, 8 months pregnant, her father's watch on her wrist. The room was large and bright and filled with people who knew her company but not her face. She presented the rare disease treatment program Ashford Pharmaceuticals had developed over the last 3 years, a therapy for pediatric patients with a condition so rare that most pharmaceutical companies would not invest in it because the profit margin was too narrow. Cora invested because the children were real, 16 families, 16 children who now had a treatment option that did not exist 3 years ago. She spoke without notes. She answered every question. She did not mention Grant. She did not mention her personal life. She did not need to. The work spoke for itself. Standing ovation. Not because the audience pitied her, not because they knew her story, because the work was extraordinary, and the woman presenting it was extraordinary. And for the first time in 8 years, she was letting people see it. The divorce proceedings began the following week. Cora's terms were simple. Generous, even. Grant kept his personal savings, his car, his retirement account, his personal belongings, everything he brought into the marriage, he could take out. Cora asked for nothing from him. Not a dollar. Not an apology. Not a single concession. The contrast was devastating. She had everything. She was asking for nothing. In the court of public opinion, which renders its verdicts faster than any judge, the story wrote itself. The billionaire wife, who was cheated on, humiliated, and thrown out of her own home, asked for nothing from the man who did it. Not because she was weak, because he had nothing she wanted. Grant lost his job 3 days after the divorce filing. Not because of Cora, because of himself. Margot Sinclair, his boss, had always been cordial at company events. She had admired Cora's quiet presence. When the truth about the marriage became public, Margot pulled Grant's personnel file. He had inflated his credentials on his employment application, a degree he claimed but never finished, a certification he listed but never earned. Margot had overlooked minor inconsistencies before. She did not overlook them now. I am removing you from the Wexler account, she told him. And from the company. Your employment application contained material misrepresentations. Legal will be in touch. Grant was escorted from the building with a cardboard box and the dawning realization that every pillar of his life had been either borrowed, stolen, or built on sand. Russell Holloway, Grant's father, came to see Cora at the hotel. He did not call ahead. He simply appeared in the lobby. A 63-year-old retired contractor in a flannel shirt and work boots, holding a rocking chair he had built by hand. I made this for the baby, he said. His voice was rough, his eyes were wet. White oak. Sanded it myself. The joints are mortise and tenon. It will last 100 years. He stood in the lobby, with the chair in his arms, looking like a man carrying the last good thing his family had produced. "I raised him better than this," Russell said. "Or I thought I did. Maybe I did not raise him enough." Cora accepted the chair. She held Russell's hand for a moment. His palms were calloused, rough. The hands of a man who built things that lasted. "This chair is beautiful, Russell." "Thank you." He nodded, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, left without saying anything else. Cora placed the chair in the corner of her hotel room, sat in it that evening, rocked slowly. The wood creaked, a good creak, the kind that meant the joints were settling in, getting stronger. Wes Caldwell came for coffee on a Saturday afternoon. He was Cora's childhood friend. They grew up 3 houses apart. He knew about her wealth because he knew about her father. He knew about her father because he was there the day Theodore Ashford taught both of them to ride bikes in the driveway. Wes was a tech entrepreneur now, successful in his own right. He had never treated Cora differently because of her money. He was one of the few people in her life for whom the number was irrelevant. "You were always the smartest person in every room, Cora. You just kept choosing rooms that were too small for you." She did not need Wes. She did not need any man. But sitting across from him in a quiet cafe, drinking coffee that had gone lukewarm, she remembered something important. She was not alone. She had never been alone. She had simply chosen to stand apart and called it independence. Cora drove past the house that afternoon. Her house, the one held in the trust. A "for rent" sign stood in the yard. The rose bushes she had planted were overgrown. The nursery curtains she had chosen were still visible in the upstairs window, pale yellow with white stars. She slowed the car, stopped at the curb, looked at the house for a long time. "I thought losing this house would feel like losing a home. But a home is where you are safe. I was never safe there. I just did not know it." She pressed the gas pedal, drove on, did not look in the rearview mirror. Starting over at 8 months pregnant is not starting over. It is starting right, for the first time. 3 days later, she felt a contraction, a real one. She looked at the clock, then another. She picked up the phone, called Jolene. "It is time." The delivery room at Charlotte Regional Medical Center smelled like antiseptic and determination. Cora lay on the bed. Monitors beeped. The lights were bright. Too bright. A nurse adjusted them without being asked. The room dimmed to something softer. Estelle held her left hand. Jolene held her right. Dr. Lark stood at the foot of the bed. Calm, focused. The kind of calm that only comes from having done this 1,000 times and knowing that each time still matters. "You are doing great, Cora. Almost there." The pain was unlike anything she had anticipated. Raw, physical, total. It made every other hurt she had experienced seem abstract by comparison. The betrayal, the humiliation, the suitcase on the lawn, all of it faded into background noise behind the immediate, overwhelming reality of bringing a life into the world. "One more push," Dr. Lark said. "I cannot." Jolene leaned in. Her voice was steady, fierce. "You built a billion-dollar company in secret. You can do this." Cora pushed. A cry. Tiny, furious, alive. 6 pounds, 11 ounces, a full head of dark hair, hands the size of walnuts, fingers curled into fists. She screamed like she had opinions about the temperature and the lighting and the fact that no one had consulted her about any of this. They placed her on Cora's chest, skin to skin. The baby's crying slowed, stopped. She opened her eyes. Dark and unfocused. Looking at nothing. Looking at everything. Cora could not speak. The tears came now. The ones she had been holding since the gas station parking lot. Since the suitcase hit the lawn. Since the puddle swallowed her mother's blanket. They came all at once, silent, warm, running down her face and onto the baby's head. The room went quiet, just the baby's breathing and Cora's breathing. Syncing up, two heartbeats finding each other, someone dimmed the lights further. The monitors hummed. Estelle wept silently in the corner. Jolene stood by the window, pretending she was not crying. She was. She does not know about any of it yet. The money, the betrayal, the suitcase, the life insurance policy, the frozen accounts and the custody motions, and the paralegal from the strip mall. She just knows my heartbeat. And that is enough. That has to be enough. What is her name? Dr. Lark asked. Cora looked at her daughter, touched her cheek, felt the impossible softness of new skin. Charlotte, she said. Her name is Charlotte, named after the city where Cora built an invisible empire, where she fell in love with the wrong man and found herself again, where she learned that hiding is not the same as safety, and that the hardest person to reveal yourself to is yourself. Grant was not in the room. He was not invited. He was not mentioned. 2 hours after the delivery, Cora's phone buzzed. A text from Grant. Can I see her? Cora held Charlotte against her chest. The baby had fallen asleep. Her mouth moved in small motions, dreaming of something. Warmth, probably. Milk. The sound of a heartbeat. Cora typed a response, slowly, with one hand. The other held her daughter. Tomorrow, hospital visiting hours are 9 to 5. Like everything else now, you will do this on my terms. She put the phone down, looked at Charlotte, looked at the rocking chair Russell Holloway had made, sitting in the corner of the room where Jolene had placed it earlier that day. The divorce papers were finalized the following morning. Deacon handled it while Cora slept. Grant signed without contest. There was nothing to contest: the prenup, the one he had laughed about at the signing, the one he had called a formality, the one he had never read, ensured that he left the marriage with exactly what he brought into it: his 401k, his car, his name. The house went back to the trust. The accounts were separated. The fraudulent credit lines were flagged for investigation. The life insurance policy was canceled. Tiffany Rollins had moved to Savannah. She did not leave a forwarding address. The pen scratched across the divorce papers. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound of an ending, and the sound of a beginning. Cora held Charlotte while the documents were processed. The baby gripped her finger. Tight. Unreasonably tight for someone who weighed less than a bag of flour. Jolene brought flowers. Sunflowers, Cora's favorite. She placed them on the windowsill. The afternoon light caught the petals and threw gold across the hospital walls. She is perfect, Jolene said. She is. She has your chin? She has my father's chin. Same chin. Cora smiled. A real smile. The first one in weeks that did not feel borrowed or forced or constructed for someone else's benefit. It was hers, entirely hers. Estelle sat in the rocking chair, held Charlotte, while Cora ate. The chair creaked softly, back and forth, back and forth. Your father would have loved her, Estelle said quietly. He would have been completely impossible about it. Buying stuffed animals, reading to her at all hours, spoiling her rotten. I know. You are going to be a wonderful mother, Cordelia. I know that too. And she did. For the first time in a very long time, she knew something about herself, without qualification, or doubt, or the need for someone else to confirm it. 6 months later, the farmhouse sat on 12 acres outside Charlotte. White clapboard, wraparound porch, a red barn that Cora had converted into a home office with a video conferencing setup that could connect to boardrooms in 6 countries. Charlotte was on her hip, 6 months old, dark hair that had gotten thicker, cheeks that had gotten rounder, a personality that had gotten louder. She had opinions about applesauce, opinions about her stuffed rabbit, and very strong opinions about anyone who tried to put her in the car seat before she was ready. The morning was quiet. Birds, a breeze through the oak trees, the smell of coffee from the kitchen. Cora stood on the porch, barefoot, watching the mist burn off the fields. She had given her first public interview the month before, a profile in a business magazine. No ghost of Grant in it. She talked about rare diseases, maternal health funding, the importance of women controlling their own wealth. The interviewer, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sensible shoes, asked about Cora's famously private personal life. Cora smiled and said, "Privacy is a choice. Hiding is not. I have stopped hiding." The article ran with a photo of Cora at her desk. Charlotte in a carrier on her chest, a patent filing visible on the screen behind her. The headline read, "The Billionaire Nobody Knew." The article did not mention Grant by name. It did not need to. Grant's life had contracted. He worked at a smaller company now. Regional sales. No corner office. No expense account. He drove the same car. Lived in a rented apartment across town. He saw Charlotte on Saturdays. He was polite. He was punctual. He was diminished. He attended therapy, reportedly. Cora did not care about his therapy. She cared about whether he showed up on Saturdays, whether he held Charlotte correctly, whether he remembered to bring the diaper bag and the extra pacifier and the specific brand of formula that Dr. Lark had recommended. Mostly, he did. He was learning to be a father the way some people learn a second language. Slowly, with effort, with frequent mistakes and occasional moments of grace. He tried once, early on, to apologize. Stood on Cora's new porch, cap in his hands. The posture of a man who had practiced this speech in the shower. "I did not know who you were," he said. Cora looked at him, long and steady, the way her father used to look at people when he was deciding whether they were worth his time. "That is exactly the problem, Grant. You never tried to." He left. His car pulled down the long gravel drive. The dust settled. The birds kept singing. Charlotte slept through the whole thing. The rocking chair sat on the porch now. Russell Holloway's rocking chair. White oak. Mortise and tenon joints. Built to last 100 years. Charlotte napped in it sometimes, reclined in her bouncer seat, while Cora worked at the porch table with her laptop. Russell came by once a month. He brought small wooden toys he carved himself. A horse, a duck, a tiny car with wheels that actually turned. He sat on the porch steps and held Charlotte while she grabbed at his collar and drooled on his shirt. He never mentioned Grant on these visits. Neither did Cora. Some silences are agreements. Jolene visited every other weekend. She brought food, gossip, medical opinions that Cora did not ask for, and an energy that filled the farmhouse like music. "You need to eat more. I eat plenty." "You eat like a bird, a stressed bird with a billion-dollar company and a newborn. Eat the lasagna." "Fine." "And the garlic bread." "Fine, Jolene." Estelle had returned to her own home in Asheville, but called every evening at 7. Without fail. 7 o'clock. The phone rang. Cora answered. "How is my granddaughter? She discovered her toes today. Did she approve of them?" She seemed cautiously optimistic. The conversations were short, 5 minutes, sometimes 3, but they were daily. And dailiness, Cora had learned, was its own kind of love. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just steady, like a rocking chair. Back and forth, back and forth. The Ashford Pharmaceuticals Research Wing opened on a Tuesday. Cora cut the ribbon herself. Charlotte was on her hip, chewing a teething ring, drooling on a dress that cost more than Grant's monthly salary used to be. The wing was named after Theodore Ashford. His portrait hung in the lobby. Cora stood beneath it, looked up at her father's face, same jaw, same steady eyes. She did not cry. She had done her crying. What she felt now was not grief. It was continuity. The sense that the thread connecting her father's work to her own had not broken. It had simply been invisible for a while. Like everything else about her. She chaired board meetings now, in person, Charlotte in the carrier on her chest. The board members had adjusted. Some of them had initially looked uncomfortable, a baby in a boardroom. But Charlotte had a talent for falling asleep during financial presentations and waking up during lunch breaks, and the board had come to regard her as the most efficient member of the team. Cora hired a nanny, not because she could not manage, because she wanted Charlotte to have a village, a wide, warm circle of people who knew her name and her laugh and her particular opinion about applesauce. Cora had grown up with her father and her mother and a handful of trusted people who formed the walls of her world. She wanted that for Charlotte, plus Jolene, and Russell, and the oak trees, and the porch. One evening, Jolene came for the weekend. They sat on the porch. Charlotte crawled through the grass, grabbing at dandelions and looking personally offended when they fell apart in her hands. "You know what I keep thinking about," Cora said. "The suitcase. Not the suitcase. The baby blanket. Mom knit it. Yellow yarn with white stars. It fell in the puddle that night, right next to the mailbox. I wrung it out, saved it, and that night, in the hotel, it was the only thing I brought inside, the only thing that mattered." She paused, watched Charlotte discover a beetle in the grass and regard it with deep suspicion. Charlotte sleeps with it every night. Jolene did not say anything for a long moment. Then she picked up her glass of lemonade and said, "That is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. And if you tell anyone I said that, I will deny it." Cora laughed, a real laugh, deep and full and entirely her own. The sun was setting. Orange light poured across the fields. The oak trees threw long shadows. Charlotte babbled at the dandelions. The beetles retreated. The birds settled into the eaves of the barn. I thought the hardest part would be leaving. It was not. The hardest part was admitting I deserved to. She had carried that thought for months, through the hospital, through the divorce, through the conference podium and the board meetings, and the long, quiet nights in the farmhouse when Charlotte slept and the house creaked and the only sound was the rocking chair and the wind. She deserved to leave. She deserved to be seen. She deserved to stand in her own name and let it mean something. Not because of the money. The money was a number, a large number, but still a number. What she deserved was the truth, her own truth, unfiltered, undiminished, unhidden. A delivery truck pulled up the gravel drive. New furniture for Charlotte's room. A crib that converted to a toddler bed. A bookshelf shaped like a tree. A rug with a map of the world on it. Because Cora wanted her daughter to know from the very beginning that the world was large and she was welcome in all of it. The driver hopped out, clipboard in hand. "I need a signature, ma'am." Cora took the pen, signed her name, Cordelia Ashford. The driver looked at the signature, looked at the farmhouse, looked at the woman in jeans and a flannel shirt, baby on her hip, barefoot on the wooden porch. He did not recognize the name. That was fine. She did. Charlotte grabbed the pen from Cora's hand and immediately tried to eat it. Cora took it back. Charlotte protested, loudly. "You will have your own pen someday," Cora told her, "and you will sign your own name, and it will mean exactly what you want it to mean." The driver took his clipboard and left. The truck rumbled down the drive. The dust settled. Cora carried Charlotte back to the porch, set her in the rocking chair. The baby blanket was there. Washed and soft, and faded to a gentle gold, the white stars were still visible, slightly blurred from 100 wash cycles, but still there. Cora draped the blanket over Charlotte's legs. The baby grabbed the edge, pulled it to her face, closed her eyes. The rocking chair creaked, back and forth, back and forth. The sun dropped below the tree line. The sky turned pink, then purple, then a deep, quiet blue. The first stars appeared, real ones, bright and steady and permanent. Cora sat on the porch beside the rocking chair. Barefoot, flannel shirt, her father's watch on her wrist, her daughter asleep beside her name on the deed, her company in the city, her life, finally, in her own hands, the baby blanket, the rocking chair, the farmhouse, the stars. Nothing hidden, nothing borrowed, nothing small. For the first time in a very long time, everything was exactly where it belonged. Closing credit. This content was carefully researched, crafted, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real emotional value and life lessons. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being part of this community.